What began as a mere thought on the Rule of Three Episode 9 stream has morphed over the last 6 days into something only Joe Schreiber is a master of, coupling Star Wars and horror as easily as tying a shoe. I'm no Schreiber, of course, but I am going to take a crack at it anyway. What follows is only a prelude, mind you, setting the stage for the horrors of survival in the most dire of conditions imaginable.
The Hoth shroud below zero, the fading echo of his lost prize, swallowed by the packed ice and snow of the cavernous makeshift hangar, was as infuriating as the dying glare of the Millennium Falcon's ion drive. Its burst departure another footnote on the discouragingly extensive list of failures to contend with. Ozzel's failure had been dealt with as quickly as it had come to his attention. This inability to affect anything of his empire's might or efficiency was not his failure. A chill wind Vader would never feel replaced the departing Corellian freighter's presence as it sang a somber tune through the vacuous chamber, whistling its eerie chords in tempo with his sonorous inhales and exhales. He felt his cape tug slightly as the wind had its way, and for a very brief moment, Vader felt helpless to affect the harsh efficiency he was made for. He was a depot of insignificance, as nature proved the victor without effort. The boy had been here. He could still feel his essence, his signature embedded deep within the currents of the Force. But he had not been on the freighter as suspected. In the moment of choice, Vader had decided to sense rather than impede, a subtle shift for utilization's sake that taught him something he had not known. The boy was elsewhere, that was clear. But who then, within the freighter, could he have sensed? The sensation was deep, a tone of familiarity within that struck the same chords plucked in the Death Star's trench, but different just the same. My lord, Avenger has engaged the freighter, an unusual voice advised behind him. Vader only stared outward, beyond the abandoned gear, empty fuel cells, and vacant pens that brought the odors of common livestock toward the bright white glare of the hangar's entrance. They even had time to release their dogs, Vader thought, aggravated anew by Ozzel's blunder. Darth Vader turned slightly over his shoulder upon a regulated exhale. Where is the company captain, Lieutenant? For the first time since arriving, he voiced a harsh inflection that contained the sum of internal rage. The battle-tested lieutenant stepped fearlessly forward, placing himself in Vader's peripheral. The captain fell to that freighter's undermount laser turret. The helmed modulation carried only the facts he knew his lord would expect. He turned involuntarily to the deceased in question, lowering his E11 to his hip. Rags, may your sons guide you. The lieutenant thought to himself, quite certain Lord Vader held no interest in the details. I want the sum of any flight-worthy vessels destroyed. Pull what you can from the central databanks in their control room. I want to know where they are going, Captain. Vader trailed off, administering the field promotion without embellishment or flourish. The boots were already busy behind him, conducting his orders without pomp or gratitude, only the methodical duty of protocol alone. He had seen enough, had been on this forsaken planet long enough, and turned to leave the hangar slowly instead of his arrival's rush nature. Vader would leave the technical aspects of his orders for his men to carry out, knowing they would do so without question, and began drawing the Force into himself for the sake of clarity. With every ebb and inward flow of dark side ingestion, Vader migrated his senses outward to see, to feel, to know. Skywalker's son had been here, walking these frozen tunnels, focusing on something Vader could not place. The boy had been meditating. Who had taught him that? He thought inwardly, reflecting as he relished the memory of Obi-Wan's defeat. Surely, not the old man. The thought was given a voice. Vader surprising himself with the depth of his practice and how elaborately intact his memories were. Entering the carved tunnel that had delivered him to the hangar in the first place, Vader balked, stopping dead in his tracks to swivel slowly around. Who then? The thought rekindled the sensation felt earlier. The one that was not Skywalker's son, but familiar just the same. A brilliant explosion sparked a dozen more as his personal squad of troopers carried out their ordered task, turning the deep blues and whites of the icy hangar into conglomerations of fiery reds and raging oranges. Thick black smoke roared through the massive chamber as the unforgiving winds howled, enraging the destruction to the brink of catastrophe or a hangar without purpose. Vader turned back to finish his trek toward what was left of the base's control room, wafting black smoke pulling his cape at its hems around his ankles. In some natural dance of rushed ambition, the practice held within the confines of the Force had yielded more information than necessary. Scores of those yet living that wore the armor of the enemy. Rebels, every one of them, that had been cut off from departure in some manner or another. Or those that had already consigned to their demise and fought on foolishly, knowing they were already dead. They would never know the depths of true sacrifice, so better to let the planet that hides them consume them altogether. With careful yet hurried steps, Vader entered the remains of the control room. Shattered glass, sparking conduit, and burning power cable greeted the view. My lord, there is nothing substantial to retrieve from what is left of the databanks. They covered their departure well. The newly entrenched company captain reported. However, we have detained 5 captives that could prove useful. Kill 3 of them, Captain, and make sure the other 2 see it. Vader cut off his captain quickly, sensing the presence of scores more that yet lived beyond the 5 reported. The trooper complied immediately, tapping the comm aside his helmet and delivering the brutal orders that were nothing more than efficiency in a campaign sorely lacking it. My lord, we have reports that there are quite a few more. Shall we seek them out? The captain voiced eagerly once his orders were given. Vader contemplated the suggestion, but dismissed it quickly. No, Captain. Incinerate this room as you leave behind me and make for the shuttle. I want that freighter. Vader snapped before turning quickly into the tunnel once more and hastening his stride for the shuttle himself, its landing having coincided with a collapsed section of the northern Warrens and close to his current position. Let this planet be their tomb, Vader thought to himself, unsure if he could engineer a more diabolical fate for these paltry rebels left behind. The destination came quicker than expected, as the darkened, icy tunnel was suddenly bathed in light. The optics within his helm just as quickly darkening the orbs to save Vader's damaged irises from further torture and pain. He did not slow one bit, diligently sidestepping 3 burned bodies, scorch marks still burning through the rabble's ridiculous attire, and ignoring their lifeless gazes. His intentions were clear enough despite the vague orders given, as Vader heard the remainder of his company behind him, scrambling to keep pace. He did not look behind him to affirm himself of the situation, only planted one dark boot after the other in a quick ascendancy up the shuttle's ramp. The clacking of the troopers' boots was drowned by the pneumatics of the closing ramp behind them, but Vader's only prize lay before him. Two raggedly garbed men on their knees, with hands clamped tightly upon their skulls, waited for a fate he would deliver. The shuttle was already lifting off as Vader strode purposefully toward them, self-aware that Viz had already removed his ground forces. He knew they were the last of the Imperial presence Hoth would ever see. "Where is your rendezvous?" Vader would only ask once. "Coruscant, you moof milker." "The Emperor," one of the insurgents sarcastically replied, before Darth Vader closed off the windpipe with bone-crunching effect, cutting off the remainder of his cynical outburst before igniting his saber and impaling what was left in the blink of an eye. Vader let the corpse drop to the shuttle's deck with a muted thud upon plating before swiveling slowly toward the second captive. "Do what you will. I am already dead," the man uttered without a hint of fear. Vader inspected the man quickly as he lowered his gaze, the warbling saber snapping violently in the shuttle's dry air. The man met the gaze directly, boring his fearless eyes into the helmeted orbs, perhaps viewing his own reflection for all the good it did him. He lowered his arm slowly, consigned to his fate, and allowed the angry red blade an unimpeded path through his neck he knew was sure to come. "If that is your wish," Vader replied casually, and gave the man exactly what he desired in one swift stroke. "My lord, Admiral Piet advises we give him an all-clear so he may commence with orbital bombardment." The company captain relayed the moment the head came to a stop. "Inform him our objective is that freighter, Captain. Hoth will claim what is left below." Vader spoke eloquently without giving those on the planet another thought, leaving the remnants of dissent, a fate consigned to the will of an icy tomb.